that story that Dateline told back in May about Brian Kohberger's sister being suspicious of him and tipping off law enforcement? Well, I heard something recently, and I was shown a text that I'm going to show in a second, from somebody claiming to be former FBI. And they were messaging Steve, and Steve took the message that he received and he gave it to somebody else, and she talked about it on a live. And what it made me think is this is weirdly similar to what was said on Dateline. And because of that, I started to dig a little bit. So I'm putting that out there just to say, you know, I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying I'm not in any way criticizing or condemning Steve. I need to make that clear. But as we know, especially since that whole bit about, you know, the stalking, there not being any stalking, but not necessarily any surveillance, we all know that that narrative was really started by Steve. And there's no evidence of that. So I think the topic of these narratives being pushed that end up not being true, I've seen it in a number of videos. I saw it recently in Jules of All Trade. I'll link to her in the episode. Go follow her. A lot of misinformation is being put out there. And the question I have is it intentionally being pushed out there, knowing that it's false? Or what's the story? Now remember, anything I show here, the text messages, whatever, this is all, it's speculation. Nothing has been confirmed. So I'm putting it out there. I'm not saying that any of this is fact. I was on a live the other night. We were talking about this text message that was sent to Steve from someone claiming to be former FBI. And he sent it to somebody else and she posted it on the live. Now, the message claims that Kohberger's sister was suspicious of him and she blew open the case. Now, I happen to think this message, it's a troll. It's a fake. They keep referring to Kohberger as the perp. They talk about doing things the tough guy way. And because they say that Kohberger's family was suspicious of him before the Be on the Lookout for the Hyundai Elantra came out. When we were talking about this message, we remembered a Dateline episode from last May. Now, remember, this episode came out 6 months after the text message. Dateline claimed that an anonymous source told them that Kohberger's sister was suspicious of him. In the same episode, they said an anonymous source also told them that Kohberger bought the K-Bar on Amazon. In May of last year, the Mirror posted a story about Bethany seeing somebody running from the house without any clothes on. All three things can be tied back to Kaylee's dad, Steve G. Now add to that the News Nation story that Ethan was found in the doorway. That's a story Kaylee's mom told the Drunk Turkey podcast. Here's what I think's happening. I think Steve G is pushing this information out there that hasn't been vetted or that he knows is false as a way to force law enforcement's hand to get more information. So he can use all these leaks and go back to law enforcement and say, why is it that this information's out there and I've never heard it? Or can you please clarify, is this true? I think he's doing it to get information because he's frustrated, which means that a lot of the narratives that are being pushed, like about the grand jury leak, are probably made up. I want to be really clear about something. In no way am I trying to say that I think Steve's doing something wrong. I think he's incredibly frustrated, as anybody would be in his situation. And he's using a tactic that probably a lot of people have used to find out about this case and what evidence they have. I first started thinking this honestly back when I first got the leaked messages, because I thought, why is he telling her all these things? Like, it just seemed so, it was very odd to me that he would be that revealing to a stranger, to somebody he didn't know, especially after she told him that she was working with a journalist. So I thought, why would he do that? Like, why would he put that information out there? And then when I saw the text that I talk about in the TikTok message, I realized that text message, it's a troll. It looks like a fake, right? Dateline had the same story or a similar story, just like they had the similar story about the Amazon, the K-Bar. You know, Christy went on to the Drunk Turkey podcast talking about how they got his name before he was arrested and they found all his social media profiles. all of these stories somehow can be traced back to him. And I started to wonder, is he doing this intentionally to somehow, as a reaction to the gag order? And again, I want to be clear, I am speculating here. I don't know this for sure. I just thought it's weird how all of these stories came out after the gag order went into place. But then once the families were able to talk about it, Kaylee's family always seemed to have this information. Now, if any of this is true, and I'm not saying it is, again, speculation here, I think there's a real likelihood that a lot of the narratives that have been pushed, like he was stalking them, like the grand jury leak, like Koberger's sister was suspicious of him and turned him in, I think most, if not all of them, are a lie, made up, not true. I kept saying that it was weird that the prosecution or the defense didn't do anything about this alleged grand jury leak. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they be bothered by it? And I've always said that I believed they didn't react because they knew it wasn't real, because the information being put out there didn't match up with what they knew. I always thought it was strange that Kaylee's mom did an interview with the Drunk Turkey podcast. Like, it just seemed so random, and I couldn't figure it out. Now, the real question that I have is, are these people that Steve's talking to, are they aware of what he's doing? Like, is he telling them, hey, put this out there? Like, I want it out there? Or is he just hoping that they'll be so hungry for fame that they'll leak the information that he's giving them? I don't know. But I do think that a lot of these anonymous sources leaking these stories are probably Steve. And again, I will say, I'm not condemning him for that. I think anybody in his position who lost a child the way he did, they would do anything to get information to make sure that the right person is held accountable. So again, I want to be clear. I don't happen to think he's doing anything wrong. But I do want to hear what you think. Do you think he's pushing out information with the intention of forcing law enforcement's hand? Do you think that the creators that he's talking to, that they know what he's doing, that he's being upfront about what he wants them to do? Or do you think that they're clueless and they're just pushing it out, hoping to get some kind of attention? Leave it in the comments.